really happy to have this topic. It's one of those interesting topics, new for Arkansas. Other states have done it. This medical marijuana. It's got a lot of aspects to it. So we've got a great panel. Robert Gregg is with the health department. Hopefully he's on his way. They've got regulations. By the way, if you ever need any materials, we did you a favor. We didn't kill a bunch of trees, but all the materials we got posted on our website. So if you need to go to our website, we got the Constitution posted. We've got all the state laws that further this amendment posted on the website. We've got the regulations of the Department of Health, the regulations of the Commission, the Marijuana Commission, I'll call it, and the regulations of, I'm trying to think what other regulations. AAC, okay, the Alcohol and Beverage Control. So we'll go ahead and start this meeting. We got Representative Doug House. Doug's an attorney and state representative. He is in charge of basically the legislation that's been promulgated connected with this the medical marijuana amendment. Basically, that's the way the legislature does it. They find somebody that's going to tackle something, with all they got, and that's what he's done. So Representative House is here today. You got Mary Robin Castell. She's the director of the Alcohol and Beverage Control, an attorney, and she's basically in charge of that aspect of regulating this legislation. We got Joel DiPippa. Joel is the senior counsel of the Department of Finance Administration. So if you could, let's pay attention. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have questions. But that way it'll be orderly. So save your questions till the end. And so basically, I'll just let our panel take off from here. I'll go ahead and get structured.
Okay. I'm going to try to avoid using the mic just because they've got one, but I can be fairly loud. As most of you know, Amendment 98 passed in November, which is the Arkansas Medical Marijuana Amendment. What that did was create a structure for a medical marijuana program in the state of Arkansas without any changes at the federal level. That amendment divided the responsibility for regulating medical marijuana between 3 different agencies: the Arkansas Department of Health, the Alcohol and Beverage Control, and a newly created Medical Marijuana Commission that is now organizationally part of DFA, because ABC also provides staffing and support to them. During the legislative session, the legislature passed, I believe, 24 total laws which changed the amendment. The amendment had a clause that allowed the legislature to make changes to most of its components to make it work a little bit better. 15 of those 24 were sponsored by and shepherded by Representative House. So he is one of our experts on what has been going on through this process. ABC, the MMC, and the Department of Health have all promulgated rules with regard to, respectively, the licensure of what are called dispensaries and cultivation facilities, the actual day-to-day operations of those facilities and the oversight of the employees, as well as the qualifying patients, respectively, with health and what's required to be in that program. In addition, what we've worked on include issues revolving around the licensure. What does it take to apply? How do we meet the requirements of the amendment, and what it does and doesn't do? And what we're hoping to be able to do today is kind of dispel some myths and some misinformation that is still out there about what's going on. One thing I will say that we aren't touching a great deal on today is going to be your employment practices. But I want to commend AAC because they had a specific employment law medical marijuana conference about 3 weeks ago, was it?
Yeah, July 18th.
And all of that information is posted on the AAC website. So with specific questions regarding your personnel policies, regarding some of that impact, what to do next, AAC already has that information available for you.
Yes, I will need the microphone, I'm sure. I'm Mary Robin Castell. I'm the director of the Alcohol and Beverage Control, and ABC has a pretty significant role in this whole marijuana structure. Not only we're responsible for everything from what these facilities have to look like in terms of construction, alarm systems, security cameras, things of that nature, but also what it takes to make certain products using the marijuana, what the cultivation operation practices and procedures have to look like, the transport of the marijuana, basically anything you can think of that once these facilities are operational that they will be doing on site, and also dispensing the product out to the patients. So in addition to that, we serve as staff for the Medical Marijuana Commission. So the ABC is gearing up. We don't have any applications yet, but we are currently accepting applications for the cultivation facilities and dispensaries up until September 18th on behalf of the MMC. Just a kind of a quick overview of what we're doing. We will be promulgating rules in the coming months in addition to what exists for cultivation facilities and dispensaries for processing, distributing and transporting the marijuana outside of the rules that have already been created. And creating, the Medical Marijuana Commission will be coming up with a licensing process for those types of entities. So, what's in the house, you want to give a...
I'll do my best. Learned something in the Army, and that's how to make your voice carry. I've got to touch back just a little bit of history, a little bit of politics, not D versus R, but some of the philosophical points that are going on, and some of the reasons why you should be paying attention at this particular moment in time. A little bit of history. Everybody in this room agreed to medical marijuana.
No.
Yes, you did. Second grade, you decided that when we had a vote, whatever got the most votes wins, and you would abide by it. I did too. I gave money, I campaigned, I talked to churches, I talked to groups, I fought this as hard as I knew how to fight it. It passed. Democracy works that way. So we all agreed to the outcome, whether we like it or not. Now, in 2 months before the election in November the 8th, the Speaker calls me in the House and said, House, if either one of these things pass, you're in charge. Yes, sir. That's how you do it. It's not the first time that I come from a military background, not the first time I ever had a mission that I didn't agree with and I didn't like. But you carry out the mission. If you can't carry out the mission, resign. And that's, you don't sabotage the organization. So all of the legislation that we got done was designed to implement this system and deliver to the people that believe they need it the product that they want, which is pesticide-free, herbicide-free, heavy metals-free, opium-free, heroin-free, that kind of product that's been cleaned and tested. I am very proud of these two individuals, particularly Ms. Castell, as modest. She has drafted most all of the regulations and certainly approved them for just about everybody. And Mr. DiPippa has been real good to help the legislature and our staff with looking at the whole money side of this product. So everything that we did at the legislature was with their input and certainly with their assistance, and we appreciate them. There were about 50-something bills passed. I killed most of them, and just be straight up, because they were dishonest. If we're going to kill the thing, then come out and say we're going to kill it. Don't try to sneak something in the legislation that effectively kills it with this, oh, I didn't have anything to do with that. We don't play that game. Straight up, honest approach. What the commission is doing at this point in the application process, and we talked about this early on, merit selection versus random selection versus highest bidder. There are a number of ways to select these contractors, all of whom are looking at your counties and your cities. And so that's one of the reasons you need to pay attention. They came up with something called merit selection, but let me tell you what they're really doing when you look at it. Because they have to, each one of these applicants has to submit a security plan, a business plan, a financial plan, a marketing plan, transportation plan, etc., 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 plus post a lot of money. A lot of this is governed by, actually, or patterned on federal law. For instance, the security plan. There are federal standards that are already on the books. So they're going to submit this proposal. Now think about it a minute. If you're going to build a home or a building, you're not going to pick the cheapest contractor, and you're going to try not to pick the most expensive contractor. You're going to try to pick out a contractor that knows what they're doing, that got the people that can get the job done. They know how to do it. They know what you want, and they're going to deliver you the building that you want at the best price. That's what the Medical Marijuana Commission is doing in their application process. They're trying to pick 5 cultivators and 32 dispensaries who will respond to the need of the majority of the voters in our state who voted this in. Now, medical marijuana is not for recreational purposes. It is a medicine. That is what they passed. They drafted it. David Couch is one of the attorneys, but other people he gets the principal role for drafting it. And it's for sick people. And there are a list of medical conditions that they have to qualify and get a doctor to certify off that they're sick with cancer or Crohn's disease, which I happen to have, and I'm not going to use it, and myasthenia gravis, severe pain, PTSD. Yes, the psychiatrists are saying it does have some use in PTSD, for instance, in certain instances. So we're talking about sick people qualified to get this. Now, they may come to your office and they may be having a prescription drug issue or an alcohol issue or a non-prescriptive drug issue such as medical marijuana. Look at your AAC website. Great advice. You've got a copy of the bill that was passed. You can deal with it. It's not going to shut you down. Police officers, no, you're not going to be able to use it at all because it's prohibited with the weapon and all that. All these kind of questions are addressed on the AAC website. Now, got any treasurers, collectors in here? Or deputy treasurers, collectors in here? How about county clerks? Good. County judges, sheriffs, deputies? Good, good. Okay, imagine an armored truck backing up to your courthouse with about $60,000 in cash money, and they're there to pay their personal property tax. What are you going to do? Because that's what's going to happen. Unless we get a bank. I think we have a bank that's going to step up. I don't know yet. I can't say yet because that's their business, and I'm not going to announce premature. But banking relationships are very important. Imagine another armored truck backing up to the state of Arkansas, Department of Finance and Administration, where Mr. DiPippa works, and just down the street where Ms. Castell works, and unloading $4 million in income taxes, or $8 million in cash. What are they going to do? Banking is essential. It scares the absolute living daylights out of me to think of several tens of millions of dollars stored at a shed down at the deer camp in Drew County, guarded by 5 good old boys who just got back from Afghanistan and kept their AR-15s handy. I'm not worried about them. They're going to be fine. It's the people that think they can get that money. It's the people who will try to extort money. It's the politicians that are interested in the under-the-table money. FBI is watching every step of what we're doing. I promise you they are. A lot of cash floating around has been a problem for the other states. So we really, really need a bank, and we're hoping and praying and trying to land one. They will make their announcement when they are ready to go. It won't be a big grandstand, fireworks being shot, searchlights in the night like at the carnival, none of that. Because they're going to be very discreet with their customers' money and their customers' identities. They will be going to the people who will turn in their applications on or before September the 18th and say, if you get a license, we would like to be your bank. They will be very discreet, very private. You may in fact see the checks. There's a book out. If you really want to know a whole lot more about banking, I'm going to promo this. It's written by a lady by the name of Sunday, as in Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Sunday Seafried. She is kind of like the queen of marijuana banking in the world. She is president of a credit union in Colorado. She has worked closely with the feds and the states in organizing a banking interest. That's pretty much the kind of the issues that you face. let me give you an insight. I've talked to lots and lots and lots of people who are applying for permits, either as dispensaries or as cultivators. I am glad to talk with any of them. I have refused 7 offers of employment by them. I'm elected to serve my district and my state. I'm an attorney. I'm a former military officer. I understand loyalties. So as long as I'm in office, I have no interest. And my wife said I can't have a full-time job anyway because she got too much stuff for me to do. But anyway, I do talk to lots and lots of them, and they ask me questions about the process or what does this particular provision mean in the law, that sort of thing. And they all come forward with, let me say it this way. Doctors don't practice medicine to make money. They practice medicine to help people. Lawyers don't practice law to make money. They practice law to help people. They gotta be paid. Truth hurts, don't it? People don't, people serve in profession. Preachers don't preach to make money. They preach to help people. These folks are of the same mentality. They're interested in providing a product to the people that need it. They understand they got to be paid. They understand they got to make it profitable, and they got to make a return for their investors. Got that. But they're very dedicated to what they're doing. If you're not going to support them as an elected official, tell them. They'll locate somewhere else. They'll take those 100 jobs on a cultivation facility and those 20 to 30 jobs in a dispensary, some of which are paying 6-digit figures, and they'll take them somewhere else and away from your county and away from your town. It's that simple. They don't want to be where they're not welcome. The next county, the next town down the road will be glad to take them in. Okay, fair enough? And that's what they're telling me. And they want to be part of the community. In a cultivation facility, about 10 jobs are going to be 6 digits. You're talking about mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, nutritional engineer, electrical engineer, agronomist, people like that. So they're good jobs, and they want to locate and be a part of the community. And then down on the lower level, think of a single mother who has to take her kids to school and pick them up in the afternoon. She can come into work, I say mother, it could be a dad, come into work at 9 o'clock, work in the greenhouses, take off at 3 o'clock, go get the kids. They don't have to punch a clock like that. There's going to be a lot of those kind of jobs too. That'd be real good for those kind of folks. That's everything I know in 10 minutes. Thank you.
About whether anyone has or hasn't applied.
Thank you.
We can say how many we've received, but we can't say anything about the contents, and we've received no applications so far.
Thank you.
In the blue, sir?
I kept hearing the statement cash. Does it just gonna drive this thing? Let's say I had a PTSD. My wife probably says I do. She probably calls it. I come in and I don't have your check or credit card. This stuff, it's all cash. You mentioned the word cash all the way through.
There are additional regulations for marijuana industries to have banking services. It's still illegal on the federal level. And the book that Representative House was talking about goes through what the existing standards are for banking institutions to provide those services, and there are methods to do that. The Department of Treasury Financial Crimes Enforcement Network has provided specific guidance with regard to what it takes for a bank to provide those services in a state where it has been legalized, and what they expect of them with regard to reporting to the federal government.
Okay, if I were gonna buy a marijuana cookie, I have to pay cash for it. That's the question.
If there are
There's a
not
lot of liquid in this thing, and
if there are not banking services provided to that dispensary, you'd be paying cash.
thanks.
May I elaborate on
Oh.
this? There are going to be dozens and dozens of products, type ointments, patches, edibles, child-proof, not safe, child-proof, things like that. The federal regulations prohibit the use of an FDIC-backed bank in a card. That's where the problem is coming in. As far as getting that cash off the street, that's a different set of regulations, but that's where we're trying to go with it. That's what's going on in Colorado and California now. They're getting the money out of the street and into vaults. Yes, sir. Thank you.
In terms of what the commission is looking for the applications, there's not much more that any of us can comment on beyond what is in the actual application itself at this point. The application is structured with a pretty extensive minimum criteria, that is with background checks, proof of finances, and then there is a merit section. Those applications are available for anybody to look at online at the Medical Marijuana Commission's website, which is mmc.arkansas.gov. But they are looking for things just in the application, such as your security plan, things that Representative House asked. What's the construction look like? What are your plans for operations? And then each section has a predetermined weight that the commission will give, and those points are allocated there on the application. In terms of law enforcement input at this level, there is not any. However, the applicant will have to certify that they are in compliance with any local zoning restrictions or impositions that have been put on that locality. That kind of brings me to another, does that answer your question? Kind of. On that note, we are getting a lot of questions about how do counties, if you're not gonna welcome the facilities into your county or your city, how do you keep them out? And the amendment structured that very much like it structured alcohol, wet-dry elections. It's the same concept. A complete ban is only possible with an election, a referendum election driven by petitions. So that's the only way to strictly prohibit them. The local zoning restrictions cannot be more restrictive than those placed on pharmacies in the localities. So cities and towns and counties are pretty limited in what they can do in restricting these beyond what the restrictions that are already in the amendment.
The answer as far as the correctional facility is section 6A2E, and that's what I needed to check, was which of that subdivisions got you. And that's 6A2 is all the places it is not allowed. And so for a lot of the questions about what does it mean, it's prohibited in community and recreational centers, public transportation, public places, school buses, daycares, schools. All of that was thought of by the drafters and put in there.
Will they be able to do research in the cultivation process
That's section 7.
on site?
Yeah.
The commission has, I believe, put research plans as one of the bonus point criteria in section 7 of the application as something that that can be done and something that they want to know if you're doing.
And third section, I appreciate it. On the finance part, has Bitcoin been discussed?
The state is not currently set up to accept blockchain cryptocurrency.
This gentleman.
Representative House, you mentioned local support and so forth. I've been approached by a couple that want local support. Is there any emeritus to having local support you all go to look at?
Yes. This has come up in a couple of instances. I'll tell you the right way to do that and the wrong way to do it. I'm aware of a couple of towns that basically said, if you give us a bunch of money, we'll write you a letter. That's extortion. It's against the law. Okay? Same thing would go for counties. If they came and they said, we would like to locate a facility in your town or in your county, are you opposed to it? It would be perfectly reasonable, and some towns, I don't know about any counties, and some towns have written letters to them and says, yes, you are welcome. Our position is we welcome those. We will provide any police support that we can, any paving support that we can. Somebody mentioned Harrisburg a while ago as one that's been kind of active in recruiting. There are a number of cities around the state that are active. But what would be wrong would be for a city council to step up and say, we're supporting this guy in his application because his brother-in-law sits on the city council or the quorum court versus all the other people that might want to be locating in that facility.
What, I guess, Wayne, what's in it for the county?
Tax revenue eventually, jobs, 4% sales tax is put on it. There's gonna be some expense
What
involved.
percent does counties get in?
Let me handle the tax question.
Yeah, he's a tax man, and plus property tax.
That's let DFA handle the tax questions.
Yeah.
All of the retail sales of medical marijuana will be taxed at the existing tax rate that you have. So any city or county tax is going to be part of that end result, which then gets allocated back. There is also a 4% special privilege tax, and all of the state level revenue, with the exception of the constitutional tax parts, and that 4% are going first to pay for the program, so that the General Assembly doesn't need to take money away from anything else. Every additional sale in your locality gets the local tax on it,
Right.
which then comes back.
In property tax.
And then the property tax questions, which I would defer to Bear on discussing, as that's one of the few taxes DFA doesn't have a finger in, is the property tax.
But, one other follow-up. If the companies, you get grants from them, is that appropriate?
That's not a question I'm comfortable answering in this format and situation. And part of why we have to be careful, and part of it is we are lawyers, is that the application period is open. And so Mary Robin and myself especially are limited in what we can say because we don't want it to create any situations for the commission or for the program. And so at the same time, there are some questions we can't answer, because if we gave an answer to a question, it could actually be a problem for the whole program.
But is locals, one other question on it, local support essential to having a facility?
I can answer that. I can answer.
I say, I will let you answer that, and I'm gonna look at the application for a minute, because
But the attorney doesn't get paid, they to help the people.
We work with people.
To answer your question, I'll go back to what I say. To say we'll support you, give us money is extortion, it's against the law. That a company wishes to support its community and may do so within its means and charitable philosophy is perfectly all right. Tit for tat, you're a government. You can't charge for government services that are available to the public at large. Now, this does work, for instance, Heber Springs. Anybody here from Cleveland County? Good to see you. For instance, Cleveland County used to be, I don't know if they still do it, used to be hired, given money so they could hire an additional deputy by the United States Park Service in order to patrol dam site and work the gate up there. That's okay. If you're gonna ask for, if a facility wants a deputy or a police officer at their facility almost all the time, you know, it's perfectly safe. You know, we can't afford that kind of thing. Well, what happens if we contribute? Those kind of arrangements are all right. Need to be up on the table, all times done by proper resolution of either cities or justices of the peace. But is local support necessary? No, not according to the book as I read. Is it a good idea? Absolutely, it's a good idea. But that's what I tell all the applicants. You want the cooperation of your community, and you need to be able to present that to the commission to put your best case for it. And I'll tell that to everybody who has told it, to everybody that asks. I'll go ahead and call some. Yes, sir.
This is purely personal because I'm greedy. What sort of projections have been run as far as revenue producing for this? And I know you'll run some study, surely.
what we did last year when both this amendment and the initiated act that was eventually struck were on the ballot was we contacted 6 states that were medical marijuana only, that had 2 full years of sales data and raw sales data that we could then take. And we ran that against their American Community Survey census numbers to create a per capita average as far as what they expected, what they saw, and projected it against Arkansas. And so what we came up with was we estimate a $40 to $45 million retail which amounts to, on the standard sales tax, about $2.5 million before the constitutionals are taken out. So that's about,
That's the entire state.
yeah, that $2.5 million on the entire state, plus then about $2.5 million on the special privilege tax to pay for it. And so that's in a fully mature market, which we have to work into. We have to have the applicants, they have to get the licenses, they have to do the build out, and begin actually providing that product to the qualified patients. But that revenue estimate is available in the joint performance review attachments to the October meeting on the legislature's website.
One other question about that. I missed the amount of facilities you think will be out there.
The commission has decided to license 32 dispensaries out of a possible total of 40, and 5 cultivation facilities out of a possible total of 8, to allow themselves to have additional licenses that they may issue if the demand is needed, if there are areas that are underserved and demonstrating they wanted to reserve their ability to have other licenses left.
So that's about 13 total, does that sound right?
32 total?
32 divided by 45, you're talking 150,000, is that right? 1.5 million
More like 1.5 million
per facility. Okay.
per facility. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the range of products that would be available, consumables, and patches, et cetera. Do you anticipate pretty much all the dispensaries carrying the full line of products, and the production of those products will occur at the dispensary level or at the grower's level?
Let me preface the answer to your question with this. There is a very informative magazine called, there are a couple of very informative, well-produced magazines by the marijuana industry that you can find online and order free subscriptions to, and that gives you an idea of the range of products. There are some cultivators who have plans, proposals to process their product. I mentioned in the jobs, nutritional surveys, that they're going to create patches and edibles and creams and ointments and different formulations. Two major formulations are THC, that's the psychoactive. The other one's CBD, cannabidiol. I never can say the
Cannabidiol.
Thank you. Hard word to is one of the operative. You can buy that stuff, by the way, cannabidiol.
CBD.
CBD. You can buy that on the internet now. It has no THC in it. Most people say it don't work. Put a little THC in it, it does work. It acts as a catalyst, what they tell me. So you'll find a lot of the cultivators want to process their own material, so they will have a production facility. We did provide for separate licensures of production, transportation, and distribution operations besides just growing it and just selling it. Name a product in the American economy that doesn't have a distribution, transportation, and processing function within it. Take rice. You don't buy your rice from the farmer. It goes to Riceland or one of the other producers, gets milled, it goes to a distribution warehouse where it goes out to Kroger's, finally ends up in your kitchen. Same methodology. So there may be people that will step forward to offer, to ask for licenses for transportation in armored trucks, which have to be videotaped 360 the whole time. Processing the material, but it will all be local, no importation from out of state. That's one of the federal guidelines. They don't want it crossing state lines, and we're going to meet that.
Is there a limitation on the number of processors or just distributors and transportation where there is like the growers and dispensaries?
No, other than the one maybe the medical one. The MMC makes, they may put, or ABCD, they may put a limitation on it if they choose. But no, we didn't provide very limitations in the act itself.
I'm a tax collector, so I'm interested in the money that this will generate, maybe for our county, should we have a dispensary. So approximately, how much would you think a dispensary would generate annually?
It's hard to predict, and part of why it's also hard to predict is that they can sell other products besides just the medical marijuana. And so there are those additional sales that may be occurring. In fact, they're all required to be carrying vaporizers. And so how that is going to work is difficult for us to make any forecast. As Representative House knows, DFA is loath to make those kinds of forecasts, except we can tell you what happened in the past. We had our estimate that is maybe $1.2 million, 1.5 per dispensary, but that again is based on, like I said, a statistical average of other states that are medical only per capita. And we have to see how it comes out. I would be happy if we were wrong and there were more sales, because that makes it easier for it to be revenue neutral. But we can't give you a good answer as far as that likely sales because of the additional effects that are there.
One other thing is, we do have this opioid problem in the state. I think we're number one. Do you think that this might help curb that in some way?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Breck from the Health Department, who unfortunately could not make it. DFA is not well suited to answer questions about addiction and opioids.
I can tell you what I've read. I don't know it to be a fact, or I can't swear to it. Opioid prescriptions in the state of Colorado are down 40%, but they have recreational marijuana. Their medical marijuana program seems to be trailing off because people say, well, I don't want, I know what I want. I will know what I'm going to get. Why not have to go to the doctor and all that stuff? I'll just walk in and buy whatever it is I'm going to get.
But the opioids has gone down.
It has, first couple of years it was down 15%. That's from some studies that I've read. I read one study, but I don't know that it's reliable, that opioid abuse is down 30%. We had a discussion about this in our committee meeting yesterday, somewhat about opioid abuse. There are facts and figures out there, but there's not a real good comprehensive study. People used to take, for instance, to commit suicide, used to take Darbons. We don't know how much they're taking opioids to commit suicide. We know that opioid abuse, age 35 and over, is significantly higher, but it also coincides with a significant suicide rate among those people. So, yeah, it does. It tends to reduce opioid abuse. And just an interesting fact, there is no such thing as a marijuana overdose death. It is not, it'll make you sicker than a dog, but it will not kill you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Hey, Rep. House, with the judges, we're faced with this thing on zoning, and you started mentioning a little bit about that. You're going to be cultivating this out in most of your county areas, in rural areas.
Sure.
Agriculture is agriculture. Are we going to redefine agriculture? Are we going to make it commercial where they have to go to different zoning restrictions? Are you going to just control substance? So does that take on a different layer? I guess the question is going to be, how do you help our counties go into this cultivation if it's not considered ag, or if they got to go through the zoning and you got to put in additional zoning restrictions, if you will, to meet the requirements?
I'm going to answer you the way the amendment is written. The amendment is written, says you may not impose zoning restrictions any different than you would for a pharmacy. So if you allow a pharmacy out in the country, you can allow a growing facility out in the country. Now, from the legislature's perspective, let me say this candidly. We were not interested in having city councils or quorum courts hold folks for ransom based on whose building you lease, whose kids get hired, who pays money to somebody to support their agenda and that sort of thing. I'm not saying anybody in here has done it, but we, like I said earlier, FBI is watching all of this. And this is the kind of thing that they're seeing nationwide when you have a lot of cash out there roaming around. Now that's the truth. So, the amendment drafters, not the legislature, the drafters said, no, you're not going to be zoning them down here. They're located down there by the sewer plant. We call it south of the airport in Little Rock. That's where the sewer plant is. So, you can't zone them out of existence. And if you don't want them there, let me go back to what I say. If you don't want them there, Go to them and tell them, we'd really rather you not located in our county. Now, they'll listen to an entire quorum court in a public discussion. They're not gonna listen to one or two people who don't like it. Fair enough? Okay.
Representative House, one other thing to remember about cultivation facilities, they are all enclosed. It all is happening inside of solid walls, solid ceilings. There's no open air provision. And part of that goes to the requirements that Robert's not here to talk about as far as what is allowable in the product itself. And that allows for greater control. We live in Arkansas. You don't like the weather for right now, wait 20 minutes, it's gonna change. When you're growing something, you need consistency, and you need a consistent temperature and consistent climate. That is one thing that does. The other thing it does is it prevents diversion. We don't want it to have an open air fence that people can kind of throw clippings through. Solid walls, solid ceilings, security requirements, all are part of that process.
There are also screening requirements and odor controls so that the rules are written so that you should not be able to tell that marijuana cultivation is occurring in that building or in that facility. So
No signs? No signs, no, flying unicorns squirting butterflies out of the Federal standards require the facility not be penetrable for 15 minutes. That gives the police time to get there. It has to be constantly monitored with videos and all that kind of stuff.
I was gonna say something about, there is a provision where a city or a county can put a measure in front of the people about,
It has to be initiated by the people.
That's
It's
correct.
got to be by
Petition.
referendum and petition.
Yes, as sheriff of the county, I currently receive, notices of applications for alcohol sales and things. Will we receive those notices on this application?
these laws were not written like the AAC laws that required that. So there is not a local law enforcement notice that goes out for a marijuana application at this point. Now, keep in mind, especially for what we've got right now, this is not a rolling process of there are unlimited applications to be accepted and granted. It's gonna be, we're gonna accept applications up until September the 18th, and then we're done as far as dispensaries and cultivation facilities. That may be different going forward for processors, distributors, and transporters. That really hasn't been worked out yet. But on the outset, for these types of facilities, no notice is given.
On the application, is there a merit point to be gained or lost by a letter of support from a quorum court?
There is not a provision in the application that would specify that.
What it is there is one in Searcy County that has that's going to file an application. They're on the letter of support from the quorum court, but does it matter one way or the other whether they support?
That's one of those
we can't
questions
answer.
we can't answer. And one of the reasons, we're not the commission. I mean, it's not specified, and so we can't really go into what's required other than what is verbatim set forth in that application.
And at a grow facility, there's no tax at the grow facility before they grow. It won't be taxed until it's at the dispensary.
No, that's incorrect.
Incorrect.
The special privilege tax, the 4% applies to every transfer of title of that product. So the sale from the cultivation facility to the dispensary has that 4% tax. So there's a little bit of, that backs up with some of the tracking that we want for audit purposes, for tax purposes. It backs up with some of the tracking that is being implemented for the ABC side seed to sale tracking, as well as the program that's being put in place to track the qualifying patients. You can't dispensary shop. You only are authorized to have 2.5 ounces usable marijuana every 2 weeks. There's a system that's going to be in place that means every dispensary will know if you've gotten your 2.5 ounces in that period.
Young lady in the back, and by the way, if any of you need to go, you won't offend us, we'll stay as long as you need us to answer questions. Young lady in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Well, my director's here now. My name is Stephanie Sams, and I work for the Assessment Coordination Department. There have been a couple of questions in here concerning assessing the property, commercial, and stuff like that. Under advisement of my director, Fair Shady, who's in here now, we are looking into it. We are
These folks are gonna be investing between $2 and $10 million to build these facilities on those land, okay? Yes, sir, agreed.
We were talking about medical marijuana, but I've heard nothing about the doctor side of it. While we have good doctors in Arkansas, there are those feel-good doctors. Is there any kind of regulations that are gonna be regulating the doctors prescribing?
We, the amendment, and we changed it up a little bit because we were going to have no doctors involved in the way it was originally written. But we tweaked it a little bit. A doctor must certify that you have one of those conditions, put their medical ID on there, the number, and that goes to the health department to get the card. And so any medical doctor can do this. Are all of them going to? No. Some of them say no. That's fine. I trust, first of all, I trust our doctors as a whole. And I also trust our medical board. The way the amendment's read, reads, it says a relationship. Is that the word we use in the amendment? Must have a relationship. I expect the medical board to step forward if anybody starts claiming them out, if they're acting improperly.
Let's do like 2 more questions, and then I've got a little comment, and we'll wrap up. 2 more questions.
What qualifies as a relationship though?
Pardon?
What would qualify as a relationship? Just a visit, one visit, or is it a regular doctor?
You're asking me now, there's a doctor-patient relationship created at some point in time. That's probably a good legal discussion to have, but it exists, we know it exists, and that's what we're talking about. Yes?
What kind of burden is this going to put on our local government
None.
to issue these cards?
They're not issued out there.
They're all issued from Health Central. Locals don't have to issue them. It's all being done through Central Department of Health.
Okay, what we'll do now is basically, let me make a comment or two, and if you got a question, the panelists can stay a little extra and answer your questions one-on-one. I think we've had a robust discussion, and basically, some of the personnel issues, the human resources issues, we had a July 18th, we had a big seminar at the AAC, it's on our website. It's over between 3 and 4 hours long. And so I don't want to, dig in too deep on that, but basically this medicine, I'll call it, is basically the situation like the public safety officers, like a jailer or law enforcement, they're not capable of taking this, like or a CDL driver, because he'd be impaired. So all those issues. And AAC's working on a personnel policy. Colin Jorgensen's in our office now, and he's working on a personnel policy for risk management counties. There's include a provision about this. There's a couple of counties that are going to already start figuring out how this applies to their actual payroll staff, who can accept this situation or not. So we're working on those issues. Of course, there's going to be some lag here because you got these seeds planted and start growing, and there's going to be a period of time before this actually kind of kicks in. So we'll be working on those issues, and again, we've got a lot of that stuff posted on our website. I think that pretty much addresses, and we've had a robust discussion. If you would give the panelists a good hand, if you got any questions,